Photographs serve as windows to the past, evoking all kinds of curiosity. They can be supernatural, historical, or the last pictures ever captured of a missing individual. Number 10. For quite some time, this incredibly creepy image has circulated the internet's various social media platforms, with no origin attached to it. Some may have thought that it was the remains of some sort of creature, or something taking on a crazy bird-like appearance. It turns out that this mysterious mugshot of a weird-looking being is a real living animal, the telescope fish. They come from the deep sea, as you may have guessed, because generally, any creature that looks this disturbing evolves somewhere within the depths of the ocean. It's one of the strangest and most terrifying fish in the waters. They dwell in depths of 500 to 3,000 meters, where we can't see them. While they aren't venomous, they can be poisonous if consumed by a person, but may still be quite frightening to see one of them during a dive, which requires specialized gear. The tubular eye shape, hence the name of this nightmarish critter, is an adaptation that allows it to collect more light and see its bioluminescent prey from a farther distance. It also gives it the ability to spot the silhouettes of its victims from above. These fish lie vertically, or upward, allowing them to easily make out any potential foods against the light traveling that deep, and prevents them from being seen themselves. As previously mentioned, they also come with massive and extensible mouths, which make up a large portion of their head. Sharp teeth adorn the thin mouths that they use to capture their prey, which are often larger than they are. The excellent chin system also helps them to fold up the bloated creature, allowing the stretched abdominal region to mend. It becomes clear that their diets consist of fish, based on the needle-like teeth, which are excellent for grasping slippery prey, including the bristlemouths, lanternfish, and the barbelled dragonfish, some of which are a few centimeters larger. Bristlemouths can reach up to 27.5 centimeters. Lanternfish can range anywhere from 2 to 30 centimeters, and barbelled dragonfish and the 15-centimeter barbelled dragonfish, which also takes a slender eel appearance. What's even more alluring about these fish is their body, which is not made up of scales, but rather something akin to a soap bubble, guanine. Its body shape also does not appear to answer any questions, and it makes it look even more alien-like. The telescope fish takes a slender and lengthy shape, with large heads, pointed snouts, and a horrible smile. They can reach lengths of up to 20 centimeters with prey and swallow prey whole. Like most other fish, these ones do not possess a ventral fin, and the reason for this is unknown, but it's guessed that it has something to do with their primitive and larval form. Even though they go through a drastic change from larvae to adults, no ventral fins ever form. Adding to the mystery surrounding these horrific sea organisms is that the larva form is vastly different from the adult version. In their pre-adult stage, they take a more fishy appearance, with regular-looking eyes, body, and tail, before they develop a pair of binoculars, immense jaw, and elongated body. When the larvae were discovered, scientists thought it was a whole different species. The telescope fish can be found in the cold tropical waters of the Earth, but due to the depths they live at, not many images have been taken of them, making this one fairly rare. Number 9. It's been a bit more than a decade since the P.H. Mercer Base 6 had been missing. 3 women and 3 men vanished from Auckland's West Coast beach. No bodies and no evidence have been found, leaving the community wondering what had happened. 2 of the women who disappeared had done so near the same track called Ahu Ahu. Cherry Vousden, who's pictured here, was last seen on the 22nd of December in 2012 by tourists as she walked along the trail away from her car that was parked at the entrance, which was found unlocked, the windows rolled down, with personal belongings and even shopping bags still inside. Police had carried out some extensive searches, but to no avail. Aerial, water, and land investigations were carried out, but no signs of her whereabouts were found. There was also no evidence of foul play or the involvement of any other person. Cherry, a North Shore woman, was 42 years old at the time of her disappearance. Her brother had explained that she would often journey on this route and loved the sunsets that were out there. She would also bring back daisies that she picked along Log Race Road. Some have theorized that Cherry had just wandered off the trail, becoming lost, or getting too near to the cliff's edge. But it's pointed out that the track is lined with very dense bush, so diverting from it is not the easiest. Coroner findings and police investigations attributed the disappearance to the wild sea, a logical explanation when someone disappears from the face of the earth. But not everyone is buying it, such as Cherry's sister-in-law, Rachel, who thinks that there's something off about the disappearances. Many have accredited them to a homicidal maniac or even angered spirits that reside there. More women have also come forward, detailing that they've been chased or stalked like prey by men in the same region, where the individuals had gone missing. According to documentaries and podcasts that have since surfaced following the 6 disappearances, multiple women have reportedly been hunted through the bush, fearing for their lives. One woman named Lisa recalled the terrifying ordeal that she had in 2007. Her incident ended in her running for her life through the brush at Piha Beach while being chased by a group of men. She managed to wave down a passing car and promptly reported to the police. During her interview, though, they asked her if she was intoxicated because of how upset she was. When people go missing in this area, she sometimes feels responsible because she didn't fight hard to get the police to take her seriously. Another woman named Sarah was with a group of friends when she tracked through the dunes to find the bathroom. A man appeared and started hunting her through the dunes, and the only reason he stopped was because there was another car coming down the road. The isolated region allows for life to be breathed into rumors that are passed through the grapevine or exchanged out in the surf. In such a small community, the truth of what could have happened becomes distorted or lost. In cases like these, there's often a belief that someone knows something that accompanies it. Sometimes these disappearances have an obvious explanation or are eventually found. But for these 6 people, they're lost forever. Number 8. Adding to the shelves of most haunted objects in the world is the Catskills Crone, an effigy that had been discovered by 2 hikers in the Catskill Mountains of New York, a place shrouded in mystery. One of the hikers had taken to a subreddit called Paranormal and detailed their experience from the time they found the crone to when they got rid of it. He explained that he and a friend were hiking in the Catskills when they came across a creepy carved statue in one of the caves. The statue had 3 nails protruding from each eye and certainly had the look of a cursed object that one should not touch, let alone remove from a cave. But that's exactly what the 2 hikers did. The one had taken what would later become known as the crone back to his house and began to experience some paranormal ongoings unraveling there. A few days later, the friend called the hiker and told him that the carving was haunted. He came to this conclusion after realizing that it was moving from place to place and brought with it the strange smell of pond water. According to the Redditor, his friend was unable to sleep at night because of the strange banging noises that would wake him up. At one point, the hiker heard a knock at his door and went to answer it, but there was no one there. He believed that he'd brought an entity into his house that was trapped inside the statue or attached to it. The pond water stench had grown stronger, and he'd seen muddy, bare footprints littering his hallway. Together, they decided to get rid of the carving, which ultimately ended up with Greg and Dana from a paranormal and occult museum. Together, they decided to get rid of the carving, which eventually ended up with Greg and Dana from a paranormal and occult museum that's based near Cincinnati. Greg had also taken to the same subreddit recounting the story, and that the object had come to be in his possession. It had been half a year later when Greg made the post, and he confirmed with a good amount of certainty that the carving was indeed haunted. The team had nicknamed it the Crone, and within hours of it being in his office, the entity pulled a crucifix from the wall. It was also explained that the evening that he and Dana had received the carving, they heard a noise that they believed had been their cats fighting. He got up to break the fight up, but couldn't find the cats, who had actually been in another room hiding under a bed, too scared to leave. Phantom knocks, wet footprints, and the pond water smell were attributed to the carving, and whatever ghostly apparition was attached to it. The team had also managed to capture the statue, moving with a motion-activated camera. In his post, Greg linked a summed-up account of his experience with the crone that he'd gone through for months. The team had sought to understand why the haunting had been attached to the carving, even if they couldn't make it stop. The effigy is believed to be of a woman, and the purpose of its creation was clearly not a good one. It looked aged and weathered along with the nails, but the rope that decorated the figure had not been older than a year. The museum director added a video that shows some anomalies floating in and out of frame. The two would later make a documentary called The Unbinding, which centers around the enigmatic crone of Catskill. Number 7. Pictured here is the artistic Japanese rendering of kanashibari, which translates to bound up with metal. It's the term used for sleep paralysis, a phenomenon when sleep overlaps with consciousness. There are many legends about Kanashibari, and stories lead back to ancient times, and are often attributed to supernatural forces that are being enacted upon the body. The most common is that of possession, when the affected person becomes inhabited by Inugami, Kitsune, or Tanuki. One of the symptoms that develop can be sleep paralysis. Sometimes this kind of possession may be overcome if one recites Buddhist sutras to get rid of the animal spirit, and once they're out of the host, the Kanashibari will disappear. Other yokai can also inflict sleep paralysis, like the Makura Geshi that haunts rooms in the night and flips over the pillows of sleeping inhabitants. Victims generally awake in the middle of the night with a weight pressing down on their chest, which is why this artistic rendering is so accurate. While the event is not outright harmful, it can certainly be terrifying for those affected. Kanashibari can even be caused by people like sorcerers or priests, according to Japanese folklore. One tale tells us of a jealous princess who was pursuing her love, Anshin. He was trying to escape her and asked a priest for the helm. The priest was able to trap the princess in Kanashibari, giving the man time to flee. It can also be caused by ghosts, with the most well-known story being that in the middle of the night, a person will wake with a sense of dread, and soon realize that they're unable to move. An invisible force then makes itself known by tugging on the arms or legs, dragging the victim in the direction of an open window. Through a desperate struggle, he eventually snaps out of it, and sees that the ghost is a middle-aged woman who rises to the ceiling. There are many artistic interpretations of Kanashibari. This image was created by Matthew Mayer, who seeks to recreate the feelings of Japanese woodblock prints while also maintaining an illustrative touch. Mayer refers to himself as the yokai guy, who's also created a few books. He established a yokai a day, where he details different Japanese legends. He explains that the Kanashibari is similar to European folklore, where sleep paralysis is attributed to a demon that visits the victims at night. Sometimes it was a succubus or incubus, but could be another nasty goblin that sits on the chest and constricts breathing. A more modern-era legend of Kanashibari, which comes from the 1990s, is the story of Yoji Baba. If one were to be in a certain area of a schoolyard at exactly 4 p.m., the apparition of an old woman appears, who's said to do a number of things, which is dependent on the place and school. Some tales say that she pulls her victims into an extra-dimensional limbo, in a place where nothing exists. Other times, she may inflict them with Kanashibari. The phenomenon has many names: dark presser, old hag, ghost presser, alien abduction, and Kanashibari, all of which excite and terrify those who are affected. Number 6. Henry Fuseli, The Nightmare, 1781, oil on canvas. This is a rather strange and nightmarish-looking painting, and that's because it relates to sleep paralysis, or Kanashibari. Fuseli, a Swiss-English painter, went against the age of reason at the height of the Enlightenment movement by depicting something much darker. As seen, the woman lies stretched across a bed, asleep with an ape-like creature sitting upon her chest, and a demonic horse appearing from the shadows. The artwork was displayed at the Royal Academy exhibition in London in 1782, where it went on to shock and frighten visitors. Unlike the other paintings that were popular at the exhibition, the nightmare had no moralizing subject and was an invented scene, a subject of the artist's imagination. While there are many interpretations of this, it's also seen as a depiction regarding the unconscious mind. The creepiest part of the creation is the crouching creature that sits on the sleeping victim. The figure is an imp or incubus, a spirit that lies on top of people while they're asleep. Fuseli's paintings are suggestive and leave room for the possibility that the woman is just sleeping. Yet it appears that her dream takes a terrifying turn and manifests in the shape of the incubus and the horse with glowing eyes and flared nostrils. A friend of Fuseli's, John Knowles, who saw the drawing before the final composition, revealed that the horse had not been present in the drawing, but appeared later in the painting. While it may be interpreted that the title refers to the horse, the word itself does not actually refer to the animal. The definition reveals that a mare is an evil spirit that takes joy in torturing humans in their sleep. Mare, or Mara, is a spirit in mythology that torments or suffocates the sleeping victims. The painting, in this case, can be understood as the embodiment of physical experience that's felt on the chest during the dream state or sleep paralysis. Matthew Mayer also makes reference to this painting when discussing Kanashibari. He speaks of incubus or succubus and other types of goblins that lay on the chest of the victim and constrict their breathing. Through the use of his composition, the artist highlights drama and uncertainty in the painting. The use of contrasting shadow and light in The Nightmare shows the futility of light to infiltrate or even explain the darker areas of the conscious mind. Throughout his career, Fuseli's art consisted of illustrated scenes from Shakespeare or Milton. The paintings would be viewed as literary drama. This painting makes use of a stage-like foreground and red drapery, which only add to the morbid tones and dark theme of the art piece. The theatrical display of disappearing elements and a single light source all add to the artist's vision of what horrors may or may not lurk in the depths of the troubling unconscious mind. The mix of horror and morbidity was reproduced in at least 3 more variations that have the same title and subject. It became an iconic painting for Romanticism and was the defining masterpiece of Gothic horror. The poet Erasmus Darwin and writers like Mary Shelley and Edgar Allan Poe all found their inspiration here. Strangely, caricaturists also adopted the same composition, and notable figures like Napoleon Bonaparte and George Washington have also been lampooned in satirical versions of The Nightmare. Number 5. The saying, "Dynamite comes in small packages," fits this creature well, the blue-ringed octopus. They can only grow to lengths of 5 to 10 centimeters, but there have been some species that reached 15. The bright display may be attractive, and the blue rings from which it gets its name may be alluring, but these are some of the most lethal creatures on Earth. Horrifyingly, their venom contains up to 10 different compounds, each of which has a different effect on the victim's body. One of the compounds can also be found in pufferfish and is a neurotoxin that attacks the nervous system, causing paralysis, and if not treated, it can be a fatal sting. The toxin is made by a bacteria that's symbiotic with the octopus and resides in the salivary glands. There's been at least one case of poisoning when a person had accidentally consumed the octopus, but strangely it was found that the toxin, TTX, was 50 times less toxic than when it was delivered through a bite, which is a near painless sting. The worst part about this lethal being is trying to identify it. They can change their colors, and the iridescent blue rings only appear when they feel threatened. By the time someone picks up one to investigate what it is, it's probably too late. There are 10 different species of blue-ringed octopus that can be found all over the world. While they're internationally traded, they're hardly considered to be good pets. Just like other octopuses that won't deliver a fatal bite, the blue rings are also escape artists. Except it'll be a lot more dire to find them than it would be for an ordinary one. This would make them a hazard to children or visitors who unwisely scoop them up to return them to the tank. The naivety is proven by the various examples of people holding them for social media pictures, oblivious to the fact that they're holding one of the ocean's most venomous creatures. While their colorful display is captivating, the flashy rings are no idle warning, and one should keep a respectable distance for viewing, and should definitely not pick one of them up. The rings are an example of venomous or poisonous animals that use their bright colors to warn predators of their toxicity. Back in 2023, 18-year-old Jacob Eggington was swimming in Shoalwater Beach near Perth when he grabbed a shell and placed it in his pocket so that he could show it to his niece. Unbeknownst to him at the time, inside the shell was an unidentified species of blue-ringed octopus. Luckily, when he took the shell from his pocket, he spotted the critter inside and dropped it quickly. Unfortunately, when his leg was examined, there was a tiny bite, and he quickly began to feel unwell. He was taken to the hospital and was expected to make a full recovery. There's no antivenom that can be administered to combat the toxin, and people are placed on life support while they wait 24 hours for it to leave their system. The creature mainly feeds on shrimp or small crustaceans, which they immobilize in one of 2 ways. They can bite their prey and inject the toxin into the wound, or they can release a cloud of it into the water, which enters the gills of potential food. What's even more alarming is that the venom that the octopus harbors is 1,000 times more powerful than cyanide itself. Number 4. On the 24th of March in 2017, 5 years after the disappearance of Cherry Vousden at Piha, Kim Bambus was next in line. She was 21 years old at the time, working as a nurse at Auckland's Middlemore Hospital. Just like Cherry's disappearance, Kim's is also shrouded in mystery, and she was also a regular visitor to the beach and would take the Mercer Bay Loop route. One day she disappeared after she told a friend that she would be heading there for a run. She threw on black shorts and a pink top together with her Nike running shoes. The dark-haired woman grabbed her water bottle and left the house. She'd stopped at the local supermarket to buy a few snacks, which is where this picture comes from. The supermarket cameras captured the last picture of Kim before she vanished forever. Her flatmates had driven out to Piha to look for her when she failed to return that evening, and at 8 p.m. they rang the police and reported her missing. No more than 5 hours later, her bright yellow Hyundai Getz was located in the Log Race Road car park. Strangely, it was at the exact same parking lot that Cherry's car had been found when she went missing. Her phone was still in the car, and there was no indication of where she may have gone. 40 police and Landsar personnel would embark on hours of searches, while other experts scaled the cliffs hoping to find the missing woman. Lifeguards took out inflatable boats, trawling up and down the coast, while officers made use of drones to search hard-to-reach cliffs, and infrared cameras were used in the dense bush. Helicopters circled the area all through the night, but to no avail. Kim was gone, and the team would become hampered by rain. The search intensified, and hundreds of letters about the disappearance were delivered to the community, but to this day, no physical evidence has emerged about what may have happened to her. Investigations only lead to theories of what may have happened, but the community believes that something more sinister is at play in the Piha area. Storm Bambus, the sister of the missing woman, described her as a tiny thing that was often the life of the party. She was also very independent and was a regular runner of the Mercer Bay Loop. The cliffs in the area tower at 240 meters above the windsurf, which is higher than the Sky Tower's skydeck. Standing on the cliffs gives you a 50-kilometer view of the empty and restless ocean. The area is also subject to Maori legends of the giant Tiriwa, who carried an ancient volcano into the sea where it now lies in the Hauraki Gulf. In 1948, the first radio waves with galactic sources were identified on these cliffs, which were the perfect site for the Cosmic Noise Expedition. The expedition helped found radio astronomy, and radio astronomy went on to discover the cosmic microwave background. There's a large stone with a plaque commemorating the cosmic connection, which rests in the parking lot where both Cherry and Kim's vehicles had been found. The track starts at the end of Log Race Road and runs along the Hikarangi Cliffs, situated between Karekare and Piha. The route overlooks Piha and eventually drops toward Mercer Bay, quite steeply. Both the women's disappearances were compared to a third woman who went missing before them in 2004, Irina Asher. Among those 3 women, there were another 3 men, Aloy Rowland, Lawrence Wu, and Quentin Godwin, who make up the total of 6 people who went missing in the same area, never to be seen again. Number 3. This picture comes from the Traveling Museum of the world-famous paranormal and occult, run by Greg and Dana, the same Greg and Dana who have the Catskills Crone in their possession. The artifact adds yet another haunted item to their books, the Dark Mirror. The initial owner had found the scrying mirror at a Columbus psychic fair and alleged to have seen nothing but horrible visions when looking into the darkness. These items are made from obsidian and are known to be powerful and incredibly mysterious. Scrying mirrors work similarly to crystal balls. Practitioners would look into it to see images or visions that give hints about the future. The object had come to be in the museum's possession through a work friend whose mother, the supposed owner, had become absorbed by it. She'd seen dark visions and became incredibly obsessed with them, to the point that she could not continue with everyday life. Eventually, the woman's daughter would take the mirror away, and it would soon make its way to the museum, where it would continue to haunt those who gazed into it. The artifact acts as a window into the fears of the viewer, while also allowing them a source of energy. Those who gazed into it when visiting the Traveling Museum have seen themselves age before their eyes, wink, smile, or even disappear during the sessions. It's reportedly best used in the Psychomantium, where there are very few distractions. Greg and Dana started bringing the Dark Mirror with them to paranormal conventions. Generally, such haunted items are kept behind glass cases during such events to contain anything that may be attached to them. They would detail the history behind each of the items that they brought for viewing, including the history of the Dark Mirror, which also came with a veil. The team also appeared on a podcast and spoke of the reflections. During the viewings, they often get skeptics coming up to them and saying that they don't believe in such things. And the first thing that Greg hands to them is that very mirror. At one such convention, a woman approached the table, pointed at the artifact, and asked what it was. So he began to explain, and before he was even able to finish, the woman scoffed, took the mirror and stared into it. It was no more than a minute before she began shaking and abruptly slammed the mirror down on its face. Immediately after, she began to mutter to herself, saying that she should not have done that. At first glance, it may appear like any other mirror with a dark reflection, but it has a lasting impact on those who are brave enough to stare into it and allow their nightmares to swim to the top. Some of these brave individuals have reported watching themselves decompose or heard their own reflections whispering things at them. It's not only strange visionary manifestations that are left, but also electrical shocks or welts left on the viewers by unseen arms. There's said to be hundreds of first-hand accounts that are tied to this dark, creepy object, which has earned it the title of being one of the most haunted objects in the Paranormal Museum, and leaves behind the question, are the visions the result of mere suggestion, or is something more sinister lurking within the golden frame? Number 2. This Japanese yokai makes for a fun yet creepy story. The Oiteki Bori is a yokai whose name derives from a slang phrase which means drop it and get out of here. This creature is said to take the mysterious form of a ghost that was first seen in Tokyo. It's a human ghost that haunts fishermen or anyone who wanders too far from their home and infiltrates the canals where it lives. No one is really sure what the creature is, but some believe that it was likely a kappa, another type of yokai. This suggestion explains that the kappa was too lazy to fish for itself, and so he terrorized the local fishermen to steal their fish. Another theory blames a tanuki, a trickster demon. The first story came from Honjo in the Sumida ward, where two fishermen had been fishing one evening. These canals had been teeming with fish, and it was common for people to make a living by catching and selling them. But these two men had noticed that they were catching more fish than usual, so they carried on until their baskets were filled to the brim. After some time, they began to grow tired until they finally didn't have enough energy to carry on fishing, and so they happily packed up their things and prepared themselves for carrying their catch home. Before they could leave, they were startled by a terrifying voice coming from the canal below, saying Oiteki. There are a few versions of how the story ends. Some believe that both of the men had dropped their baskets and run off, and when they returned, the baskets were completely empty. Another ending says that they fled to their houses with the baskets in hand, but when they got home, there was not a single fish inside. There are much more chilling versions of the story, one of which explains that both fishermen had tried to escape. One of them dropped their basket and the other had not. The one who did drop his fish managed to get home and escape the creature. He bolted his door shut out of fear. The other was not so lucky and could not get very far because of the heavy load he was carrying. A creepy ghost hand rose from the canal and dragged him into the water along with his catch, and he was never seen or heard from again. Another creepy tale was that the second fisherman who managed to escape woke up later that night with kanashibari and lay there helpless as the ghostly woman came from the canal and dragged him from his bed into the water. He too would never be seen again, but still no one knows what the entity is. Number 1. This painting looks as though it should depict a terrifying haunting. It's Francis Bacon's study after Velázquez's portrait of Pope Innocent X. For him, the Pope is more of a tragic figure who renounces individuality and self-identity for the purpose of upholding a public role for a smothering system. That system being oppression, a prevalent source of violence, which the artist portrays in this very painting. It was inspired by the 17th century portrait of the Pope that was created by Spanish painter Diego Velázquez. Bacon had been incredibly fascinated by the figure during the 1950s and 60s, and created around 50 portraits of the subject, the starting point being Velázquez's Pope Innocent X. The artist, being so transfixed on this painting, had several reproductions in his studio. The original painter depicted the Pope as an embodiment of authority with the status of a spiritual leader. Study after Velázquez's portrait of Innocent X entirely shattered this image with the screaming Pope figure. The Velázquez's portrait, Pope Innocent X, looks comfortable and relaxed, but in Bacon's depiction, he's clearly in distress and even his hands seem to tense into fists as they grip the armrests of the throne. The grip on the armrests and the scream of terror show that the subject is suffering deeply. So far, the painting does seem rather creepy, but what makes it worse are those dark vertical lines. The artist used vertical color folds to create the illusion of an isolated space or a cage. This is an artistic device called space frames. He generally painted curtains in most of his paintings using this technique, but in this particular rendition, those vertical lines don't take on a curtain-like feel and appear to be crashing down forcefully. Bacon's use of space frames was to give the representation of psychological entrapment, which of course is also prevalent through the chilling cry of horror seen on the Pope's expression. The face is also based on previous renditions of the same subject, called Head 6, which also takes a screaming and chilling facial structure. The difference is that Head 6 shows only the nose down to the collar, whereas the study portrays a full-body representation that maintains a creepy and ghostly transparency, and the painting is rather scary. Paired with the cage-like lines, along with the transparency, it appears that the Pope is disappearing or being reduced to smoke. The lines are thought to be the cause of the suffering in some interpretations of the depiction. Many have tried to decipher why Bacon would paint the Pope in this way, and all that's come about are mere theories and possibilities. When asked about this during an interview, the famous artist only responded, quote, "People like to get a reading from everything," implying that there isn't really a meaning behind these depictions. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.